Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Stephen, for the opportunity to come and speak to the group today. I attend this Rotary gathering somewhat racked with guilt because I'm the grandson of a Paul Harris Fellow and former District Governor and the son of a club president. And that's where the lineage stopped. So, yeah, my dance card's pretty full these days, sadly, Geordie, but yeah, it is. I do come here feeling some pangs of guilt. It doesn't help that I also spent 12 years in the Catholic school system, so I live with guilt every day. This just compounds the whole thing for me, really. But and it's lovely to be at the Adelaide Oval too. My grandfather, whom I mentioned, he helped found the Woodville District Cricket Club and was a Saka team manager actually for a number of years. So from the age of about, I think, 7, he started to bring me to the Adelaide Oval. I'd be here for every Shield game, all 4 days during the school holidays, out the back getting autographs, and it's the start of a relationship that now spans more than 50 years of coming to the Adelaide Oval on a regular basis. And from a footy perspective, it's always good to come here knowing that your team won't be losing today during the course of lunch. Although I'm a Crow supporter and we did have a great year. I haven't been into a Rotary meeting for many, many years, so it did strike me. I don't know if you've noticed this, Stephen, but there are women here today. When on earth did that happen? My grandmother, I remember being a strong member of Inner Wheel and playing a big role in that, but it's fantastic to see the progression, and obviously with that background I'm really well and truly across all the tremendous work that Rotary does in the community, and I think that from what I've been hearing so far today, that hasn't changed one iota. As Stephen said, my role these days is as the CEO of the South Australian Business Chamber. I've had this role for about 3 and a little bit years, having moved in from the wine sector where I had about 20 years of experience and a number of other roles before that. And for me, one of the attractions in working with the Chamber was that opportunity to draw on the knowledge that I'd had developed over a number of years in terms of my experience, but also to give back, because these roles are really about they're not-for-profit chamber roles, and they're about a purpose-driven approach. And Stephen did mention we changed our name. We were Business SA up until about 18 months or so ago. One of the reasons I wanted to change the name was that we are not a state government department. We are an independent, not-for-profit, member-driven organisation, and when your name is Business SA, you start to sound like Renewal SA, Stephen, or every other government agency that has the letters SA stuck on the back of it. As someone said to me once, if the government started a pizza shop, they would call it Pizza SA. It's just what they do. So I was keen to reclaim the power of the Chamber name, because the Chamber network goes right across the world, and there's a powerful Chamber brand literally in every city and every town across the planet. So to reclaim that word Chamber as the South Australian Business Chamber, I felt was very important. And the fact that South Australia's own chamber was formed in 1839, just 3 years after the state was founded, tells me that just 3 years in, the business leaders of the state saw there was benefit in speaking with one voice in terms of getting their message across. Also makes me assume that the first union was probably started in 1838, and they thought they better get on the case as a business group pretty soon after that. Now, a quick snapshot of what the Chamber does, for those of you that haven't had any dealings with it historically. I like to say that we connect, we protect, we educate, and we advocate. So the connection piece is we run networking events ranging from the biggest show in town, which is the official business lunch for the AFL gather round every year, and similar events, big International Women's Day lunch, big mentally healthy breakfast, the Premier's Business and Export Awards. So you're talking 800 to 1,000 people, down to boardroom lunches where we'll curate a group of our key members to listen to a speaker talk on a particular topic that's important to them, and everything in between. We have monthly chamber events held in a local business where we'll have 120, 130 people there, purely looking to connect and network with each other. We also connect businesses with international markets. If you've ever exported, you need a certificate of origin to stamp on your document before it can head overseas. The Chamber provides that service, as well as migration services, as well as translation services for businesses operating in that space. The protect piece, a lot of small businesses in South Australia do not have the luxury of an HR team or HR department. Now, unfortunately, we deal with a very complex and confusing series of awards. If anyone's ever run a business, you'll understand that. It's only getting more challenging as we see IR changes coming through at a federal level. So for a lot of South Australian businesses, they call us. We have a helpline. We are their IR, their HR department, and they might call and say, it's a long weekend coming up. I've got this award. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be paying this person. Or there's been a change of award. What do the changes mean to me? Or I just sacked someone. Was I supposed to give them a warning? The Fair Work Commissioner's at the front door. What should I tell them? And we do represent businesses when they get themselves in trouble along those lines as well. It's a very complex area and IR is critical. The educate bit is we run programs that we have been doing for many, many years, often funded by grants from the state government. We run an entrepreneurial program. It used to be called Say Yes. Now it's the Young Entrepreneurs Scheme. We run a similar one called Business Fundamentals for businesses who aren't startups but have been going for a few years and suddenly realise, hey, this is a great idea around the kitchen table with my brother-in-law and it's starting to take off, but I'm not sure I have the governance and policies in place. What do I do next? So we help them. And then we'll run programs for businesses who are high potential, looking to scale and take off. So there's a lot of educational work being done. We also do a good deal of work, health and safety work for businesses where we'll go and run programs to train their HSR, their health and safety representatives, or do audits of their business to make sure they're doing the right thing and they are a safe operating business. And the last bit is advocate. That's at the heart of every single chamber around the country. So there's not a bill that goes before Parliament which impacts business in South Australia that doesn't come to us for some type of comment or submission. And often they'll pass through with, yes, that looks good, or on occasion we'll have to take the particular bill up with, maybe it's the Attorney General, or even sometimes I've had to lead delegations into the Premier's office to say, we can't support this bill. It's not right for business, you haven't thought about the implications of X, Y and Z, and perhaps I'll get some other associations alongside with me to support that push, and we'll go back to the government and on occasion they'll take that bill back and review it, and hopefully we'll get something that the business community is happy with, the unions are happy with, or no one's really happy with, but we can both live with it, and off we go. So advocacy's never changed. It's a really important part for what we do. Which leads me to talking about the issues facing businesses in South Australia today. We run a survey every quarter called the Survey of Business Expectations. It's been going for decades. We partner with William Buck, so a shout out to William Buck who do help us deliver this survey. And we ask a set of around 80% of the questions wouldn't change. So that set of questions don't change every quarter, so we have a nice set of data to look at back over the years, but we also throw in questions that are more relevant of the time. So we might ask businesses, what are you doing around AI? What do your powers bills look like this month? How much is payroll tax impacting your ability to grow your business? Those types of things. So we get a read on those as well. But interestingly, if you speak to South Australian businesses, as we do, and remembering a lot of these are small businesses, which reflects our economy, we are a small business state. The survey for business confidence in South Australia, the level generally sits below neutral. In fact, it hasn't been positive since 2021, when it got a bit of a spike coming out of COVID and everyone said, hey, we feel good about ourselves. Interestingly, we always view, as South Australians, the federal position or the national position as worse than us. So we're negative about ourselves, we think it's even worse nationally. Business conditions have followed a similar path. We've had a brief spike in how people saw business conditions in March 2023, but otherwise it's been negative since COVID. Do you remember what happened in March 2023? It was the first AFL gather round. So people felt really good about what was happening in South Australia for that 12 months, and we went back to where we were before. So what is it that's making our business owners feel that way? Because I look around the city and I see cranes all over the skyline. We hear about growth opportunities in defence through AUKUS, critical minerals, renewable energy, biomed, cyber, biotech, agri-tech. In fact, anything with tech stuck on the back of it is taking off here in South Australia. If you look at all the projects, we've got a massive project going on, the North-South motorway, we have Northern Water, we're going to be building a new women's and children's hospital. So what's wrong with these business owners? Why aren't they happy? What's keeping them awake at night? So here's what they're telling us. We have a two-speed economy in South Australia. So what does that mean? Well, if you're part of the pipeline for these government infrastructure projects, life's good. There's more work than you can dream of, and you're getting paid on time, which is not something the government could always be accused of doing, let me tell you, but generally they're paying people on time these days. That's good. If you're not in that and you are battling it out with everyone else, then life's a little bit different, because while the general public have been going through a cost of living crisis, business owners have been going through a cost of doing business crisis. Their energy bills have never been higher. Never. Their staffing costs have not been higher. We've had significant increases over the last 6 years in terms of the award, which then impacts what we pay as salaries in the marketplace. And because we're pretty much at zero unemployment, 4 to 5% is zero, there's a lot of competition in the marketplace and it's forcing salaries up. I'm getting a nod there from a few people in the room about that. So you add on to that the fact that we've gone through an inflationary period and we've seen all the inputs that go into businesses become very expensive. And up until recently, insurance costs have been going through the roof. I've only just started to see insurance come back in the last 6 months. Businesses are finding that their cost base is going through the roof, but they can't put their prices up, they tell me, because mum and dad are going through a cost of living crisis. They can't afford to pay more. So if I put my price up, I'm going to lose them. If you don't put your price up, you're going to lose them anyway, because you're going to do that for so long before you go out of business. So they're caught in this dilemma. So it impacts some sectors more than others. If you're in the discretionary spend sector, so think about food and wine, tourism, entertainment, you tend to be the first hit when people tighten their belts. And we've seen a number of restaurants and cafes go under in South Australia over the last 18 months or so. Yet, I still talk to plenty of businesses who are going great guns and life's good, because they're operating in different sectors and different supply chains. The other thing that's hitting business really hard, and if I asked this question 3 years ago, this might have been number 5 on their radar. Now it's number 2 with a bullet. Pilko, you know what 2 with a bullet means. I say that to people who go, what did that mean? I said, well, there used to be these charts, and when a song was going up the charts with a bullet meant it was going well. Number 2 with a bullet are the costs associated with industrial relations, regulations and bureaucracy. We call it red tape. We now call it, we all know what red tape is. We all talk about green tape, which now means they're the costs your business are facing because it has to operate in a sustainable and environmentally friendly way. Then there's even white tape, which is what you get if you're caught in a supply chain where someone up the other end of the chain has to deal with the green tape, and you've got to do changes in your business to meet the requirements so you can deal with them. So if you want to sell with that customer in a particular marketplace, you have to become sustainably friendly, environmentally friendly, and meet certain criteria. Now, businesses are saying, 2 years ago, I dealt with this. Now I'm employing someone a day a week just to deal with my red tape. So that's not productive investment in my business. Or I'm having to do it myself, which means I'm not out talking to customers, I'm not growing my business, I'm not being productive. The closing the loopholes in legislation that came in a few years ago at a federal level, which had things like the right to disconnect, is one that people often hear about, which is around not being able to contact staff after standard working hours. Trying to change the casualisation of the workforce, so making it harder to have casuals on your books, trying to make everyone an employee. We can turn the tape off and I'll tell you the reason that comes through is that casual workers don't join unions, but full-time employees and permanents do, so that's part of the drive to get rid of some of that casualisation. These things are making it tougher and tougher for people to run businesses, especially small businesses. And that's where the Chamber comes in and give them a lot of advice around this. Small business owners are petrified about mistakenly underpaying a worker and being on the front page of the Advertiser for wage theft. Coles and Woolies get that all wrong all the time. And it's not deliberate. You know, with the teams they have and the workforce they have, it's a challenge for the biggest of businesses to get payroll right. So for someone who's a one-man band with half a dozen staff, it can be really tricky. So they are the type of things we hear from businesses. We used to hear more about the lack of workers, can't find workers. Now we hear more about we can't find skilled workers. So the workforce as such issues have softened a little bit, but skilled workers is still a major issue. And if you want to go to the regions, any of our regions around the state, skilled workers and any workers is a major issue. And you can't talk about workers without talking about a housing crisis, because if we want to attract workers, we need somewhere for them to live. The regions don't have the housing. In fact, we don't have the housing in South Australia yet to attract more workers that we need to come into the state to fill these roles. So we're going through what I call growing pains, which is a good thing. I mean, I'm actually quite bullish about the state of our economy right now. In fact, I think we're going through a transition over the next decade or so that will, if we get it right, sustain us for 100 years plus. But right now we're playing catch up and scrambling because we've had historical underinvestment in infrastructure. Think of roads and water. We're trying to build houses at a rate of knots for the same reason. And we haven't invested in our people enough. We've had a brain drain of people going into state. So we're merging the universities, we're building tech colleges, we're frantically trying to chase our tail here so we can be ready to take advantage of these opportunities. And it's actually this lack of a skilled workforce that I see as our biggest risk in terms of taking advantage of these opportunities and being able to transform the economy in the way we want to. And I guarantee you it's one thing that keeps the Premier, or one of the things that keeps the Premier awake at night. And if you just think about the demand on workers with trades to work in Ryella, to work on the expressway, to work in the Northern Water Project, to build the hospital, good luck getting someone in the next few years to do your bathroom renovation for you. Or if you do, you're going to see inflationary pressures spike the cost up of all that sort of construction work, which we'll then see will impact the economy. A bit like WA a number of years back when the mining boom was really taking off and everything just went up in terms of price. So at a macro level, I think if we take ourselves out of these day-to-day challenges I spoke about before about running a business, it's a really good time for South Australia. I'm optimistic about the future. And also, I can observe how we're being viewed on a national stage. I have a network of chamber CEOs from around the country that I talk to regularly, and I interact with them and the Australian Chamber in Canberra. They all know the name of our Premier. It's probably the first Premier in decades that they could have told you his name. They don't always pronounce it correctly, but they definitely know what it is. So don't underestimate the impact of major events and the role they've had in making South Australians feel good about themselves. You saw that spike, I told you about the spike earlier in confidence, but also around how the rest of the country sees us. And what I've seen with Gather Round particularly is I'm talking to businesses, business owners who maybe have never been to South Australia before, out of Victoria. We find that hard to believe. Or they're here with their partners and maybe they've been to Adelaide once or twice for business, but their wife's never been here. I sat with one who was saying to me, leaning across to talk to her husband, saying, why haven't we been here before? Look at these beautiful houses. We could have moved here years ago. I would have been very happy here. We've got to appreciate that while we might think we have this rivalry with Victoria, and they're thinking about us a lot, they're not. I came back recently from a trip to New York and Washington talking about trade, and it reminded me too there that America doesn't really think about Australia a hell of a lot either. But it's all relative. It's all relative. So these things are important. Live Golf's brought people to the state. You're bringing a generation of people, a lot of males, and sadly, like women in the room, it's still male dominant, a lot of these businesses, between the ages of sort of 30 and 50, who have not spent time in South Australia before, and they're really liking what they see. We partner with a government agency called Invest SA and Morgan Stanley, a broking firm, to bring together around 30 venture capitalists from interstate into Adelaide for an event where local businesses could pitch to them. Now, groups like Blackstone don't come to South Australia. They certainly don't come en masse. You might get one in a room across the course of a year. We had 30 in one day. The next year, they had 40. The first 30 came back again. Last year, we stepped away and said, this has grown its own legs, gave it to the government and said, you deal with it. It's now become bigger than us. So these events do have a great role to play. I'm talking to interstate businesses regularly who are coming here to be part of the ecosystem. They want to understand, okay, we've got to be part of the defence system. Who are the other businesses in the supply chain? What's it like to operate in South Australia? Where should we think about setting up? I even had a meeting with a company that were going to buy Santos out. Maybe I messed that one up because that deal didn't go ahead. But you know, the interest in South Australia is definitely there. And as Stephen said, we're about to go into election mode, official election mode soon. And the message that I'm putting to both sides of politics, and bearing in mind the chamber, we are completely apolitical. We're only about supporting policy that's good for business, that's it. I'm saying to them there's a buzz around South Australia we haven't seen in a long time. So the last thing we want from a government is to say, okay, let's just duck back under the duvet, let's just stick to our knitting, right? We want them to be bold. If you believe the pundits, you've got a government that can't lose, well, be ambitious with your agenda. On the other side, you've got an opposition who can't win, then you've got nothing to lose. You can go hard as well. Don't play it safe. Let's challenge each other and see what we need to do to take ourselves to that level while we have this momentum. We're going to launch our pre-election charter in the next few weeks, so keep an eye out for that. It'll have 15 recommendations. They're in 3 categories. One is productivity and economic growth. Productivity is the buzzword nationally right now. The other one is the future workforce for our state. I mentioned the challenge there. And the other is around state tax reform. You'll hear us banging on once more around payroll tax and the evil that it is and the tax on growth that it is. So I'll close by saying, as I mentioned through the course of my speech today, that we believe life is pretty good in South Australia right now. We feel positive about business. And there's one thing for sure, you would not want to be Victoria. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew, for an excellent address. Are there any questions?